My name is Amy, and a year ago, I married the love of my life, Sean. Our relationship was everything I had ever wanted: loving, supportive, and filled with laughter. I couldn't have been happier. I worked as an accountant mostly from home, and I enjoyed my job, though there was more to it than people might think. Sean had his own car parts business, which kept him busy, but we still had lots of time together. We loved spending our free time with each other and often went to parties with Sean's many friends, colleagues, and business partners. I always looked forward to these gatherings and enjoyed being a part of Sean's world. One sunny Monday morning, as I sat at our kitchen table, sipping coffee and checking my emails, Sean walked in with a big grin. "Hey, beautiful," he said, giving me a kiss on the cheek. "Roger's having a barbecue at his place. Thought we could go have some drinks and catch up with everyone. You up for it?" "Sounds perfect," I replied, already looking forward to it. We got to Roger's house around 8 p.m. The smell of grilling food and the sound of laughter filled the air as we made our way through the crowd. I noticed a striking blonde woman I hadn't seen before. She was chatting with a group of people, her laughter loud and clear. "Who's that?" I asked Sean, nodding in her direction. His face tensed just slightly. "That's Angela, my ex-girlfriend." Before I could say anything, Roger saw us and waved us over. "Sean, Amy, glad you could make it. Come, let me introduce you to everyone." As we approached the group, Angela's eyes locked onto us and she smiled, but it didn't feel genuine. Well, she said in a sweet but fake voice. "If it isn't Sean and his wife." The way she said wife made it sound like an insult. I smiled, trying not to let her get to me. "Nice to meet you, Angela," I said, extending my hand. "I'm Amy." She glanced at my hand like it was dirty and turned back to Sean. "Shawnee, darling, it's been too long. You have to tell me everything you've been up to." I bristled at the nickname, but Sean quickly jumped in. "Good to see you, Angela. Amy and I are doing great. How about you? Still working at your dad's company?" For a moment, Angela's smile slipped. "Oh, you know me," she replied. "I like to keep my options open, unlike some people who feel stuck." The conversation with Angela dragged on for what seemed like hours. She kept making little digs at me while flirting with Sean. I did my best to stay calm, but by the end of the night, I was completely worn out. In the weeks after that first encounter, I started seeing Angela more often at our social events. Each time, she seemed to go out of her way to make me feel uncomfortable. One Saturday evening, we were at a dinner party hosted by one of Sean's business partners. I was talking with a few of the wives when Angela strolled over, holding a champagne glass. "Oh, Amy," she said in an overly sweet voice, "that's an interesting outfit." I didn't know the librarian look was back in style. I glanced at my knee-length skirt and blouse, suddenly feeling self-conscious. "I think it's appropriate for a dinner party," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. Angela laughed, the sound sharp. "Of course you do, sweetie. Not everyone can pull off high fashion like me." I bit my tongue, resisting the urge to point out that her dress looked more suited for a nightclub. Instead, I politely excused myself and went to find Sean. As the weeks went by, Angela's behavior got worse. She began posting pictures from our gatherings on social media, always making sure to crop me out or hide my face. Her captions were thinly veiled insults about my appearance or personality. One day, while scrolling through my feed, I saw a particularly cruel post. Angela had uploaded a picture of herself next to an unflattering one of me. The caption read, "Who do you think is a better match for Sean? Vote in the comments." I felt my face heat up with anger and embarrassment as I read through the comments, most of which favored Angela. At the end of the post, she added, "Looks like the people have spoken. Sean must be crazy to pick plain Jane over a beauty like me." That evening, when Sean got home, I decided it was time to bring it up. "Sean, we need to talk about Angela," I said as he walked in. He sighed, loosening his tie. "What has she done now?" I showed him the post on my phone, and his face darkened as he scrolled through it. "This is unacceptable," he muttered. "I'll talk to her. Tell her to take it down." "That's not enough," I said, my voice shaking slightly. "I want you to tell her to stay away from us." "I don't want her at our parties anymore," I said. Sean ran a hand through his hair, looking uneasy. Amy, I can't do that. She's the daughter of an important business partner. I can't just ban her from social events. So, I'm supposed to just deal with her bullying me? I asked, my voice rising. Of course not, Sean said, pulling me into a hug. I'll talk to her and make it clear that her behavior isn't okay. But you have to understand, I can't cut her off completely without hurting my business relationships. I pulled away, frustration building. And what about our relationship, Sean? Doesn't that matter? Of course it does, he said, looking hurt. You know you're the one I love. Angela is in the past. I chose you, remember? His words should have made me feel better, but I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the start of our problems. As I lay in bed that night, I couldn't help but wonder if our perfect life was beginning to crack. In the weeks that followed, Angela's behavior became even bolder. At every party or gathering, she seemed determined to get under my skin and get closer to Sean. One night, we were at a cocktail party hosted by one of Sean's colleagues. I had chosen a simple but elegant black dress, feeling confident and comfortable. That confidence didn't last long. Angela walked in wearing a tight red dress that left little to the imagination. Her eyes locked on Sean, and she headed straight for us. Sean, darling, she cooed, completely ignoring me. You look absolutely stunning tonight. Before either of us could respond, she placed her hand on Sean's arm and stroked it lightly. Care to dance with me for old time's sake? I felt my blood boil, but Sean gently pulled his arm away. Thanks, Angela, but I'm here with my wife. Maybe another time. As we walked away, I felt a small sense of victory, but it didn't last. Throughout the night, Angela continued to make her presence felt. I watched as Angela kept trying to get Sean alone. She would call him over to talk about business or ask for help with some fake problem. To Sean's credit, he turned her down every time, making sure I was included in the conversation or coming back to my side quickly. But the constant attention was wearing us both down. The following weeks didn't get any better. Angela's attempts to mess with our relationship became more frequent and more obvious. She'd leave flirty comments on Sean's social media, always hinting at their past. At parties, she would loudly talk about their time together, purposely leaving me out of the conversation. Things finally came to a head at our friend Christian's birthday party. Angela arrived late, wearing a dress that looked more suited for a red carpet than a backyard barbecue. As soon as she walked in, she locked eyes with me and smirked. "Oh, Amy," she called out, her voice filled with fake concern. "Poor thing, didn't you get the memo? This isn't a library book club meeting." Laughter spread through the crowd, and I felt my face burn with embarrassment. Sean, who had been talking with some colleagues, quickly came to my side. "That's enough, Angela," he said, his voice low and angry. "You need to stop this childish behavior." Angela widened her eyes in fake innocence. "Why, Sean? I'm just trying to help. Someone has to teach your little wife how to dress for these events." Before Sean could say anything, I suddenly felt something cold and wet on my clothes. I looked down and saw red wine spreading across the front of my dress. Angela stood in front of me, holding an empty glass, her face showing fake regret. "Oh no," she gasped. "How clumsy of me. Though, to be honest, that stain's an improvement on that awful outfit." The party went silent, and everyone's eyes were on us. I stood there, humiliated and furious. But as I looked at Angela's smug face, something inside me snapped. "You know what, Angela?" I said, my voice steady and calm. "I'd rather wear this stained dress than spend another minute pretending to be civil with you. Your behavior is pathetic and embarrassing. If you'll excuse me, my husband and I are leaving." I turned to Sean, who was staring at Angela in shock and disgust. "Let's go home," I said. As we headed for the exit, I heard Angela's shrill voice behind us. "Sean, darling, don't go. Stay, and I'll take good care of you." Sean didn't even look back. He put his arm around me and said loudly enough for everyone to hear, "The only person I want to be with is my wife. I want my wife to take care of me." "Goodbye, Angela," Sean said. As we drove home in silence, I couldn't help but feel that a line had been crossed. Angela had revealed her true self, and there was no going back. One sunny morning, Sean came into our bedroom with a serious look on his face. Amy, I have to go on a business trip, he explained. It's important for the company. I'll be gone for about a week. I nodded, feeling a small knot of unease in my stomach. Okay. When do you leave?
Tomorrow morning, he replied.
Sorry for the short notice. It came up suddenly. I forced a smile. It's fine, I understand. Your business is important. The next day, Sean left for his trip, and I found myself alone in the house. The week dragged on, and I kept myself busy with work to fill the quiet. On Saturday evening, my phone rang, and to my surprise, it was Angela. Amy, darling, she said, her sugary, sweet voice coming through the phone. I'm organizing a small get-together tonight, just a group of 8. I'd love for you and Sean to come. I hesitated. Sean's out of town on business, actually. Oh, what a shame, Angela said, not sounding disappointed at all. But you should still come. It'll be a great chance for us to bury the hatchet and start fresh. What do you say? Every instinct told me to say no, but I was curious. I'm not sure, I said hesitantly. Oh, come on, Angela pressed. It's at MacArthur Place. You know the place, right? Very exclusive. It'll be fun, I promise. At the mention of MacArthur Place, I felt a smile tug at my lips. All right, I said, making a quick decision. I'll be there. What time? Wonderful, Angela exclaimed. 8 o'clock. Don't be late. At precisely 9 o'clock, I walked into MacArthur Place. I saw a group of Sean's friends, 8 people, including Angela sitting at a table. For a moment, I thought things might actually go well. But as I approached, my heart sank. There was no place set for me at the table. Angela stood up, her eyes gleaming with malice. Oh, Amy, she said loudly, her voice dripping with fake concern. I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding. You see, we're full up here, no room for extras. She twirled, showing off her designer dress. This is a place for people who belong, Amy. Beautiful, successful people. Maybe you should try the diner down the street. I hear they make a great hot dog. The table fell silent. Everyone looked uncomfortable, but no one spoke up. I laughed, genuinely amused by Angela's pathetic attempt to humiliate me. I turned and called out, "Excuse me, could I speak to the restaurant manager, please?" The manager approached our table, polite and professional. "Is there a problem here?" he asked, looking between Angela and me. Before Angela could respond, I smiled at the manager. "No problem at all. I was just wondering if I could join this lovely group for dinner." The manager smiled kindly. "Of course, madam. Let me get you a comfortable chair right away." As he hurried off, Angela's face twisted in anger. "Excuse me. I booked this table for 8 people. She wasn't invited, and there's no room for her here," Angela snapped. The manager returned with a plush chair and placed it at the table. "I apologize for the confusion, but Madam has the right to sit wherever she wishes. She is, after all, the owner of MacArthur Place." A gasp went around the table. Angela's mouth opened and closed, stunned, while Sean's friends looked at me in disbelief. Christian, one of the friends, finally spoke up. "But Amy, I thought you were an accountant. That's how Sean introduced you to us." I smiled and shrugged. "I am an accountant. I do the books for my restaurant. I don't usually talk about my wealth. I prefer to judge people by their character, not their bank account." Angela's face turned bright red, a mix of embarrassment and anger. The mood at the table shifted quickly. Sean's friends, who had stayed silent earlier, now scrambled to invite me to join them. "Amy, please sit with us. We'd love to hear more about your restaurant." "I can't believe we never knew this about you," one of them said. I raised a hand, smiling gently. "Thank you all, but I think I'll pass. I just wanted to stop by and say hello." Then, turning to the manager, I added, "Please make sure my husband's friends are well taken care of. The bill is on me tonight." As I prepared to leave, I couldn't resist saying, "And Angela, there's a lovely diner down the street. I hear they do a great hot dog. You might want to try it sometime." With that, I walked out of the restaurant, leaving behind stunned silence and a very embarrassed Angela. When Sean returned from his business trip a few days later, I told him the whole story over dinner. You should have seen her face, Sean, I said, laughing. I don't think I've ever seen anyone turn that red. Sean shook his head, chuckling. I can't believe she thought she could embarrass you like that. You handled it perfectly, Amy. As we finished our meal, we both laughed, knowing that Angela's games were finally over. I felt a deep sense of contentment. Angela's attempt to humiliate me had completely backfired, and in doing so, it had brought Sean and me even closer. Several weeks passed after the incident at MacArthur Place, and life settled into a comfortable routine. The memory of Angela's humiliation had faded into a funny story that Sean and I occasionally shared over dinner. One morning, as I was going through my emails, I noticed something interesting: a message inviting me to participate in the prestigious Entrepreneur of the Year award program, specifically in the category for successful new businesses. My heart raced as I read the details. It was a big recognition for all the hard work I had put into the restaurant. We decided to attend the event together. On the night of the awards, we dressed up. Sean looked sharp in his tuxedo, and I chose an elegant, simple gown that made me feel confident and strong. The venue was amazing, filled with the city's most successful and influential people. As we mingled, I saw many familiar faces: friends, acquaintances, and several of Sean's business associates. The atmosphere was buzzing with excitement. At one point, Sean excused himself to chat with some colleagues, leaving me by the champagne fountain. I was admiring a beautiful ice sculpture when I heard a familiar voice hiss in my ear. "What are you doing here?" I turned to see Angela glaring at me, her face twisted with anger. "I was invited," I replied calmly, showing her my invitation. Angela's eyes narrowed. "This event is for the rich and successful people of the city, people like me and my father. You don't belong here. How dare you try to sneak into our world? Leave before you embarrass yourself." I stayed calm, scanning the room until I spotted who I was looking for. With a smile, I waved to two distinguished older gentlemen in fine suits who were talking across the room. As they walked over, Angela continued her rant, but I ignored her, focusing on the men. When they reached us, I warmly embraced one of them. "Dad, I'm so glad you could make it," I said, kissing his cheek. Turning to the other man, I extended my hand, which he shook warmly. "Mr. Raymond, it's great to see you again." Angela's jaw dropped as she realized who he was. Her voice rose with disbelief. "Daddy, what are you doing? How can you be friendly with this nobody? She's just an accountant who got lucky. She doesn't belong here." Mr. Raymond's face turned bright red as he listened to his daughter's outburst. His usually calm eyes were now full of anger. "Silence," he thundered, making Angela flinch. He gestured toward my father. "This man is Brendan Taylor, one of the most successful entrepreneurs in the country and my trusted business partner. Your ignorant words could ruin a multi-million-dollar deal." Angela's eyes widened in shock, but instead of backing down, she snapped, "Then cancel the deal, Daddy. We don't need to do business with her family. They're beneath us." Mr. Raymond's face grew even redder, and his voice rose to a shout, drawing attention from everyone in the ballroom. "That's enough. Your behavior is unacceptable." He pointed a finger at Angela. "From this moment, you're cut off. No more allowance, no more credit cards, and consider yourself evicted from that fancy apartment you love so much." Angela's mouth dropped open in disbelief. Mr. Raymond then turned to me and my father, his tone soft and apologetic. "Mr. Taylor, Amy, please accept my deepest apologies for this awful scene." "Angela," he snapped, turning back to his daughter, "leave.
Now."
You've shown you don't deserve to be here." At that moment, Sean pushed through the crowd, his face full of concern and anger. "What's going on?" he demanded. Then, catching sight of Angela, he shook his head in disgust. "I should have known. Now I remember why I broke up with you, Angela. You never learned how to behave." Angela's tough front finally crumbled, and tears started streaming down her face, smudging her mascara. "Daddy, please," she sobbed, reaching for Mr. Raymond's arm. "I'm sorry, I didn't know. Please don't do this." But Mr. Raymond brushed her off. "I have business to discuss with my partners," he said coldly, turning his back on her. "Goodbye, Angela." As Mr. Raymond walked away with my father, Angela stood alone in the middle of the ballroom, crying with mascara streaking her cheeks. The crowd around us slowly drifted away, leaving her isolated and humiliated. The rest of the evening went by in a blur, and when it was time for the awards ceremony, I found myself walking onto the stage in a daze as they called my name for the Successful Entrepreneurial Debut category. As I accepted the award, I spotted my father and Sean in the audience. They were standing, clapping wildly, their faces glowing with pride. Their excitement filled me with a wave of joy and accomplishment. In the weeks after the ceremony, life settled into a new, pleasant routine. The golden statue sat on our mantel, quietly reminding us of that special night. Sean and I continued attending parties with his friends and business associates, and without Angela's toxic presence, the gatherings became so much more enjoyable. The atmosphere was lighter, conversations were more genuine, and laughter was much more frequent. One evening, as we were getting ready for another social event, Sean came up behind me while I was putting on my earrings. Wrapping his arms around my waist, he said, "You know, I've noticed how much more fun these parties have become lately." I smiled at him in the mirror. I was just thinking the same thing. It's amazing how one person's absence can change everything. Sean nodded thoughtfully. "Speaking of absence, have you heard anything about Angela lately?" I shook my head. "Not really. She seems to have completely disappeared. Though I did overhear Christian talking to his wife at the last party. There's a rumor that Mr. Raymond sent her to another state, something about not wanting her to embarrass him or the family business anymore." Sean raised an eyebrow. "Wow, that's pretty drastic. But I'm not surprised after how she acted at the awards ceremony." I turned to face him, adjusting his tie. "It's a shame, really. She had so much privilege, but never learned to appreciate it or use it wisely." As we drove to the party, I reflected on how much my life had changed over the past year. From dealing with Angela's drama to receiving recognition for my business, it had been a whirlwind. Yet through it all, my relationship with Sean had only grown stronger. As for Angela, I genuinely hoped she'd find her way. Everyone deserves a chance to grow and become better. Maybe her fresh start in a new state would be just what she needed. For now, though, I was happy to enjoy the moment, swaying in my husband's arms, surrounded by friends, and feeling grateful for the life we had built together.